Hey, it's Brandon Kneefel. I'm here to talk about the finale of Logo TV's Finding Prince Charming. If you watched the finale, you saw that I broke my Achilles tendon and also kind of got heartbroken in the interim. And it was one of the hardest consecutive 48 hours of my life because the rupture happened and then I was in the hospital, then I was with the doctors, then I was home in bed resting, and I knew that I had limited amount of time with Robert left. I had limited amount of time to really impress upon him that I did feel like we could be something, that something could come from this, and that my heart was open to him for sure. But now everything was flipped upside down, and I was no longer the focused one. I was no longer the centered one. I was off, and I felt dizzy, and I felt confused, and I felt unclear, and I was also frustrated. I was frustrated that something like your Achilles tendon could steal away moments and distract from the reason that you're actually there. I remember thinking to myself, I don't know how I cannot leave here with Robert after everything that I've had to prove and show and stand up for. After all that, I don't know how I can start and leave this process with nothing except for an injury. And I didn't think I'd have to. That's the scary part for me, is that my intuition was on. I believed that our relationship was growing exponentially from episode to episode, and I was so convinced that this was my love story, that I was going to see this through, and Robert was going to say, yeah, let's do this for real. Let's try this out in real life. But it didn't happen like that. And I remember telling Eric, he came to my room the morning of the finale of the last black tie affair, and he said, what do we do, Brandon? Like, how do we do this? And, a lot of people don't know, but we've been friends for a long time. So it was interesting that we were able to make it through this whole process together. And I gotta say, he was one of the only ones that I really thought that I could make it through this process with me. So I told him, one of us is gonna have to leave here with love and the other one's gonna have to leave here with grace. That's the only way we survive this experience. And I went on that date with Robert. He cried. I started to get nervous because he still was undecided, and I didn't know how he was making his decisions. I don't know how anyone makes decisions in that moment with this circumstance, but I knew the way I felt, and usually that's enough. Usually. And then we had to get ready for the black tie affair, and I remember that was the first time I actually needed help getting ready, and it was the first time no one was around to help. So it was very somber, and it was very, internal, and I remember just feeling pathetic. I felt like I was limping and trying to get my tuxedo pants on, and then going from one room to the next. It was a long day, and I get to that archway where Lance was standing under the beautiful big night sky with all the stars out, and I was sweating, and I was so unclear, and I couldn't picture anything. I had no vision for that moment. I couldn't see how it was going to end, and that was shaking me a lot. But when Robert came out and he started talking, I knew right away. And then he looked at me with tears in his eyes, and that's the telltale sign, right? That was it. And I was, in my mind, all I thought was, don't close your heart. My last video was all about keeping your heart open, and this opportunity was the best exercise in not closing down, because I had every reason to close down and then shut out afterward. I had every reason to, except for the most important reason, that nothing ever is accomplished by closing your heart. Nothing ever good comes to you by closing your heart. Nothing ever positive or loving or kind or compassionate can happen to you with a closed heart. On the contrary, only an open heart allows all these things to process through us. It's kind of similar to a rhino coming through your house. If a rhino ends up at your front door and barges through your living room, you don't go around and close all the windows and the doors. You get out of the way, keep the doors open, and try to guide that rhino gently out. Well, when you are rejected in such a dramatic way, in such a powerful way, when someone says we're not on the right paths, we are on two different paths, you can't argue with that. So you gotta let that pass through. You gotta let that rhino of an emotion pass through you. I can't do anything about someone believing I'm not on the right path, that I'm not on the same path as them. I can't make myself better. I can't work out more. I can't be kinder. There's nothing to do if you're just not on the same path as someone else. So I knew right then that was my permission to let it go. There was nothing to be gained in holding on to that dramatic and sad and grief-filled emotion. And of course, I cried through that whole process as soon as I got off camera, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to walk off camera and walk with my crutches crying at the same time. There was no possible way. So I held it together. I wished them well, and I really, 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 really did wish them well in that moment, and I wished them love and happiness. But I cried, and I cried, and I didn't think the tears would stop. I've never woken myself up crying, and that happened. And it was just my opportunity to relieve everything, to let go of everything. And finally, I stopped playing the story in my mind that I wasn't good enough, that I did something wrong, that I'm not right for this person and this person and this person. I let that go, and I let that pass through, and I got to open up my heart once more. And it's funny because I didn't know that's what I was doing at that time. I didn't know I was keeping my heart from closing. But I remember the next time that I saw Robert, instead of, I thought I'd be angry, I thought I'd be annoyed or disappointed, or I thought that I would blame him for leading me on and making me believe that he was going to choose me. But the next time I saw him, all I could do was go back to that time on the yacht, that time we had dessert, and all those other experiences that led up to those special moments. That even though this was a show, there was real connections made, and I don't have to understand how everything unfolds and why, but I know that if I don't close my heart, then I can receive everyone in front of me with love and compassion, and eventually happiness. Thank you all for being so supportive of this journey. It's been so magical and so miraculous, and it's gotten me to connect with so many people out there. I wish you all well, and I hope to hear from you soon.